Okay, hi, I'm Casey. Let's talk about the books I read in February. This wrap-up is going up about a week later than I intended it to, because I got sick, we got really busy, and then a bunch of shit exploded around us. So let's just talk about some books, shall we? That'll make me feel a little better. I read 15 books in February because I was in a terrible reading slump. I'm going to quickly go over the star ratings I gave each of them, and then we're gonna move on to superlatives. I gave no rating to Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay, Evicted: Poverty and Profit in the American City by Matthew Desmond, Making Love with the Land by Joshua Whitehead, and The Book of Delights by Ross Gay. My 3 stars for the month were My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh, Echoes: The Saga Anthology of Ghost Stories, edited by Ellen Datlow, Alice in Borderland Volume 1 by Haro Aso, Your Mind is a Terrible Thing by Haley Piper, and Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. My 4 star for the month was Chainsaw Man Volume 6 by Tatsuki Fujimoto, and my 5 stars for the month were My Heart is a Chainsaw and Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones, The 100 Years' War on Palestine by Rashid Khalidi, and The Black Guy Dies First: Black Horror Cinema From Fodder to Oscar by Robin R. Means Coleman and Mark H. Harris. Moving on to the superlatives, we're gonna start with my worst of the month, and this was kind of hard. Everything was very middle of the road for the most part. Half of my 5 stars were rereads, the other half were nonfiction. But I guess if I had to pick a worst out of all of the kind of middle of the road I read, I'm gonna have to give this to Your Mind is a Terrible Thing. This is a horror following what is their name? I've forgotten their name. I don't remember the main character's name right now, but following someone who is on a spaceship. They are currently seeing the ship's psychologist, both like seeing them to help with their mental health, but also like kind of dating them and sleeping with them. It's this is the reason why it's the worst. I think that that's just such a strange decision, but okay, whatever. And then like alien brains come over the ship, which is why the book's called Your Mind is a Terrible Thing. This is just a science fiction horror novella. It was really short. I listened to the audiobook and it was fine. Like overall, I thought it was at least very enjoyable and entertaining, but this was definitely probably the lowest out of my 3 stars. I think I probably ended up giving this like a 2.75 or something on like Storygraph versus Goodreads. But yeah, that's this one. I actually don't have a book that I would classify as my most disappointing this month, just primarily because most of what I read ended up being kind of a sea of like middle of the road, and anything that I didn't really enjoy, I kind of expected not to enjoy for one reason or another, so I didn't end up disappointed in anything, so we're just not gonna have that category today. My most meh book of the month, though, has to go to Alice in Borderland Volume 1. This is a, first of all, it's a manga, but I'm trying to think of what you call these particular styles of manga. I don't know. I'm not very familiar with manga. We have a young man and his friends who end up getting sucked into an alternative world, and they have to play these games in order to survive in this world. And you're kind of learning what their various skill sets are and seeing the intermingling relationships as it goes on. This was really meh to me. I just had no expectations going into this. I'm trying to read more manga this year because I'm reading Chainsaw Man with my cousin-in-law, and that's going fabulously. So I just thought it would be fun to just pick up a couple others that maybe I had heard of, and overall this one for me it was just really meh. I didn't have, I'm not going to continue in the series. I wasn't disappointed, nothing was offensive, but just overall, it just really flatlined for me. I read it all in an evening and just got to the end and went, well, that's that. So, yeah, so I guess, I don't know. I'm having such a hard time with words today. So yeah, I guess that's that. Moving on to my most surprising, and I'm gonna have to give that to Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This is a literary fiction following a young woman named Amira. She is a young Black woman living, I believe, in Philadelphia, and she is a babysitter for a white family and watching a young white girl, I think around like 3 or something. And one night when the family is having a little bit of a crisis, she steps in to take the daughter to a local grocery store for a couple hours just to get her out of the house so they can handle what's going on. And while there, she is accused of stealing this girl and is hassled and harassed by a security officer there, and someone films it, and the story kind of goes from there. That's gonna be the synopsis you hear from a lot of people. I think that synopsis would make you think that this is going to be a lot more intense and a lot more heavy-handed with its messaging, but this is really a slice of life novel. I think if you're expecting something to be a little bit more heavy-hitting or to be a little bit more in your face about race relations in the United States, this is not it. It's really good at being really subtle. I had a really good time with this by the end. Now, it took me, I think maybe until about the 60% mark or so to really get into this one. I was listening to the audiobook while cleaning my house, and I just was not having a good time the first 60 or so percent, because I just found it to be a slog. I wasn't expecting it to be so slice of life. Which I love those, but I want to be in the right headspace when I pick them up, and I was not for this. But this, by the end of it, it takes, I don't want to say like twists and turns, but it has big plot moments and stuff that's very impactful, and it, by the end, was really just a fun ride. I really enjoyed this. I also love characters that are just passengers in their own story. It's one of the things I just really like in books, and I think that Amira fits that to a T in here, and it was just a really good time. And for the reason this is the most surprising to me is because I really thought that this was going to be a 2-star for about 60% of it, but by the end I was really close to giving it 4 stars, and so I really enjoyed it by the end. And I'm gonna keep saying it that way because that's how I felt about this. Moving on to my best of February. My 2 fiction 5 stars were rereads, so I'm not gonna talk about them, but we're gonna talk about my 2 5-star nonfictions. The first one I want to talk about is The Black Guy Dies First. This is exactly what the tagline says. This is a history of Black horror cinema, including tropes, movies, soundtracks. This was just really, really fun and enjoyable while also being extremely informative. I think it really rode that line exceptionally well for tackling, you know, what can be a really heavy topic, but also keeping it a little light and a little playful. I would highly encourage, if you have the ability to listen to the audiobook, I would recommend it for this one because the narrator is so fucking funny. There were moments I just laughed out loud. There are just portions of chapters that are extremely funny. There's chapter titles that just had me have to pause and laugh for a solid minute. It's just a really, really good time while also just being so informative and so interesting. And why would you get Warwick Davis, I think that's his name, to do a leprechaun rap in one of the movies? That is one of the things I just walked away from, just absolutely baffled by. But yeah, so I highly recommend this one. And the other nonfiction book I gave 5 stars, and my best book, hands down, of February was The 100 Years' War on Palestine. This is a history of settler colonialism and resistance, 1917 to 2017. If you are unfamiliar with the current ethnic cleansing and genocide happening in Gaza and also the West Bank, then you need to pick this up and you need to read this. It's extremely informative. And it's horrifying. It's awful. I can't do any justice to what this book is. This is a recounting of trauma and pain and imperialism and just heinous acts that, you know, right now my fucking government is not only culpable but directly involved in, and it's just gonna make me mad to talk about. And I don't think I will be the first person who will tell you that you should pick this up and you should read it. I listened to the audiobook for this. It's another one I highly recommend on audiobook. I think nonfiction is extremely accessible via audiobook if you can access that. Yeah, I don't know what to say. This is just a really powerful book and really worth the read, and It taught me a lot, and I think it can teach everyone a lot, especially if you're not familiar with what is going on and what has been going on for, over 100 years now. So yeah, ending on a somber note. That's my February wrap up. Thank you for hanging out with me today while I tried to get my shit together and just talked about some books. And yeah, please feel free to do algorithm things, like, comment, subscribe. Leave me a comment. I'm kind of having a rough time right now, and I'd love to chat with someone about like books or something more lighthearted. I will see you next Friday or Monday maybe, because I'm going to be filming Money Wasters right after this. But I hope you are having a fantastic time, and I hope the beginning of March is treating you really well. That's it. Okay, bye, pals.